Everything happens for a reason. Buddhist wisdom for life. Life is often compared to a vast river, flowing with currents both gentle and fierce. Each of us stands upon its banks, watching the waters move, sometimes stepping into its flow, other times resisting the waves that threaten to pull us under. Within the human heart lies an eternal question. Why do things happen the way they do? Why do joy and sorrow visit us unexpectedly? Why do we meet certain people, encounter particular struggles, or face moments of inexplicable loss? For many, these questions give rise to anxiety, frustration, or despair. But from the Buddhist perspective, every event, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, carries within it a seed of meaning and transformation. The phrase, "everything happens for a reason," is not merely a comforting platitude, but a profound reflection of Buddhist wisdom. It reminds us that life unfolds according to the law of cause and effect, karma and interdependence, where every moment is both the result of the past and the foundation for the future. This teaching does not demand blind faith in destiny, nor does it suggest a rigid script already written for us. Instead, it reveals a dynamic interplay between our choices, intentions, and the larger fabric of existence, where every experience, pleasant or painful, becomes an opportunity to awaken. In Buddhism, the truth of impermanence teaches us that nothing remains fixed. Joy fades, suffering shifts, relationships change, bodies age, and circumstances transform. But within this endless change lies a deeper purpose: growth, compassion, and wisdom. The pain we endure becomes a teacher. The joy we feel becomes a reminder of life's preciousness. The people we lose remind us of the fragile beauty of connection, while the challenges we face reveal the strength hidden in our hearts. This journey through Buddhist wisdom invites us to move beyond the surface of events and into the essence of understanding, to see that life is not random, nor is it cruel, but rather a vast web of interconnection where everything has its place. Each trial, each blessing, each moment of silence or noise contributes to the awakening of our consciousness. In the following sections, we will explore 5 profound insights rooted in Buddhist teachings that reveal why everything happens for a reason. These are not abstract theories, but living wisdom that can illuminate your path, comfort your struggles, and remind you of the sacred meaning woven into every step of your life. Let us now begin with the first teaching, the law of cause and effect, karma, and how understanding this principle can change the way we see everything that unfolds before us. Karma and the law of cause and effect. The foundation of Buddhist wisdom rests upon the principle of karma, the universal law of cause and effect. Karma is often misunderstood as a form of punishment or reward handed down by some cosmic authority, but in truth, it is much more subtle and profound. Karma simply means action, and with every action, whether through thought, word, or deed, we set into motion a chain of consequences. These consequences are not isolated but ripple through time, shaping our present and future experiences. Imagine throwing a stone into a still pond. The stone creates ripples that expand outward, touching every part of the water's surface. In the same way, each thought we harbor, each word we speak, and each choice we make sends ripples into the vast ocean of existence. Some ripples return quickly, while others take time to circle back, but eventually they all do. This is the essence of karma, the truth that what we sow, we shall reap, not as punishment, but as a natural reflection of the energy we put forth into the world. When we say everything happens for a reason, we are acknowledging that the conditions we face are not random. They are the results of countless causes, some planted by us in this life, some carried from previous lives, and some created collectively by the world we share. To understand this is to awaken to a new sense of responsibility and empowerment. Rather than blaming fate or resenting misfortune, we begin to see that our present moment is shaped by our past actions, and our future will be shaped by what we choose now. Consider, for example, the person who struggles with repeated failures in relationships. From the Buddhist perspective, these experiences may not be meaningless cycles of pain, but opportunities to learn lessons about attachment, compassion, or self-awareness. Perhaps the karma of neglecting honesty or respect in past interactions ripens into present difficulties, offering the chance to grow into a more loving and mindful human being. Without these challenges, the lessons would remain unlearned and the soul's journey incomplete. This principle applies not only to individuals, but also to societies and nations. Wars, conflicts, and injustices do not appear out of thin air. They arise from seeds of greed, hatred, and delusion planted over generations. Healing and peace will not arrive by chance, but by cultivating seeds of wisdom, compassion, and justice. In this way, karma explains why the world unfolds as it does, and why each of us has a role to play in creating harmony or perpetuating suffering. The beauty of karma is that it is not fixed. It does not bind us to a predestined script. Instead, it empowers us to transform our lives. Every moment holds the possibility of planting new seeds of kindness, patience, generosity, or understanding that will bear fruit in the days and years to come. The suffering we face today may be the ripening of old seeds, but how we respond to that suffering determines the future harvest. If we meet pain with resentment, we plant more suffering. But if we meet it with awareness and compassion, we transform the cycle and create new patterns of joy and peace. The Buddha often taught this truth with simple metaphors. Just as a farmer cannot reap rice from a field where he planted corn, we cannot expect love to grow from seeds of anger or peace to arise from seeds of violence. Life gives back what we put into it, not as a judgment, but as a reflection of reality. When we understand this, we begin to live more consciously, aware that each choice matters, each intention carries weight, and each action shapes the fabric of our existence. To embrace karma is to embrace responsibility for our lives. It is to realize that we are not helpless victims of chance, but active participants in the unfolding of our destiny. Even when events seem harsh or unfair, Buddhism invites us to look deeper, to see the hidden causes, and to recognize the opportunity for transformation. For within every experience, no matter how painful, lies the chance to awaken, to grow, and to plant new seeds for a brighter tomorrow. And so, when we say everything happens for a reason, let us not use it as a way to escape responsibility or dismiss the pain of others. Instead, let us use it as a reminder that every moment is connected, every cause has an effect, and every action offers the possibility of creating meaning. To live with this awareness is to walk the path of awakening, where even suffering becomes a teacher and joy becomes a blessing to be cherished. If this teaching resonates with you, and if you wish to continue exploring the profound wisdom that reveals how life unfolds with meaning, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. By doing so, you will not only stay connected to these lessons, but also join a community seeking truth, compassion, and inner peace through the timeless wisdom of Buddhism. Interconnectedness and the web of life. In Buddhism, another profound dimension of the phrase "everything happens for a reason" is found in the teaching of interdependence, sometimes expressed through the term pratyasamutpada, or dependent origination. This principle reveals that nothing exists in isolation, and no event arises independently. Instead, all phenomena are woven into an intricate web of causes and conditions that give rise to one another. Just as a single thread in a vast tapestry cannot be understood apart from the whole, each moment of our lives is connected to countless other factors, seen and unseen, that contribute to its unfolding. When we experience suffering or joy, when we encounter obstacles or blessings, it is not by chance, but through this vast web of interdependence that life reveals its hidden meaning. To truly grasp this is to see that the universe is not working against us, but through us, with us, and around us, in ways that go far beyond our limited perception. The teaching of interconnectedness begins with a simple observation. Nothing in this world arises by itself. A tree does not grow without soil, water, and sunlight. The soil does not exist without minerals, rain, and the decomposition of plants and animals. The rain does not fall without clouds, and the clouds do not form without oceans and winds. Each element depends on countless others, and to separate one from the rest is impossible. In the same way, our lives are supported by countless conditions. Our parents, our teachers, the food we eat, the air we breathe, the labor of others who sustain our societies, and even the smallest creatures whose existence makes the ecosystem balanced. Every breath we take is a gift of interdependence, and every step we walk is carried by an invisible network of support. When we apply this vision to the events of our lives, we begin to see that nothing is meaningless. The person we meet on a random day, the loss we suffer at an unexpected moment, the opportunity that arises when we least expect it, all of these are the result of interconnected causes that stretch far beyond what we can see. Perhaps a decision made by someone years ago ripples into our present, or perhaps our own past actions circle back through channels we never imagined. What seems like coincidence is, in fact, a dance of interdependence, where every step leads naturally to the next, not because it is predetermined, but because the web of life connects all things. One way to imagine this is through the metaphor of Indra's net, a teaching from Mahayana Buddhism that illustrates the infinite interconnectedness of all beings. Picture a vast net stretching infinitely in all directions. At every knot of the net, there is a jewel, and each jewel reflects all the other jewels. No jewel exists on its own. Each contains the reflection of the entire net. In the same way, each of us reflects and contains the whole of existence. When one jewel moves, the entire net shimmers. When one life changes, the whole of existence is touched. To live with this awareness is to realize that no action is ever insignificant, no experience is ever isolated, and no life is ever separate. We are all part of the great net, each reflecting and shaping one another endlessly. This perspective radically transforms how we understand our struggles and joys. If everything is interconnected, then the difficulties we face are not punishments nor arbitrary misfortunes, but the natural unfolding of countless conditions. Losing a job, for example, might seem devastating in the moment, but within the web of interdependence, it may lead us to discover new skills, new people, or a new path that aligns more deeply with our purpose. A broken relationship may shatter our hearts, but it also may open us to compassion, resilience, and the chance to love with greater authenticity in the future. The pain of illness may draw us closer to the fragility of life, awakening gratitude for each breath and a deeper connection to others who suffer. When we see these experiences as connected threads in a greater tapestry, we understand that nothing happens in vain. Everything has its place in the vast design of life. Furthermore, interdependence teaches us humility and compassion. Since we are all connected, our actions inevitably affect others, just as the actions of others affect us. The anger we release into the world does not vanish. It ripples outward, touching others and eventually circling back. The kindness we extend, no matter how small, also ripples outward, sometimes reaching people we may never meet. In this way, interdependence reminds us that we are never powerless. Each choice matters, each gesture counts, and each moment holds the potential to bring healing or harm. This recognition encourages us to act with mindfulness, knowing that our lives are threads in a shared fabric of being. The law of interdependence also dismantles the illusion of separation that fuels much of human suffering. We often believe we are alone in our pain, isolated in our struggles, or disconnected from the world. Yet Buddhism reminds us that this perception is an illusion born of ignorance. In truth, we are intimately connected to all beings. The joy of one being contributes to the joy of all, and the suffering of one being touches the suffering of all. This is why compassion lies at the heart of Buddhist practice. To see interdependence is to realize that to harm another is to harm oneself, and to help another is to heal oneself. When we live with this awareness, we begin to cultivate a heart that naturally seeks the well-being of all, knowing that our destinies are bound together. But interdependence is not only about connection, it is also about impermanence and change. Just as conditions give rise to phenomena, those conditions also change, leading phenomena to dissolve. Nothing lasts forever because everything depends on causes that are themselves impermanent. This truth can be painful when we cling to what we love, but it is also liberating when we face suffering. No storm lasts forever. No winter is eternal. The pain we feel today will pass, just as joy, too, will transform. When we understand this, we stop resisting change and begin to flow with it, trusting that every ending is also a beginning, every loss a doorway to new possibility. This is another dimension of why everything happens for a reason, because every change, no matter how painful, carries the potential for new life, new growth, and new wisdom. The Buddha himself illustrated this truth in countless ways. He taught that just as a lotus grows out of the mud, our awakening grows out of suffering. Without the mud, the lotus cannot bloom. Without challenges, wisdom cannot arise. The difficulties we face are not meaningless obstacles, but the very soil in which our strength and compassion take root. When we look back on our lives, we often see that the moments that once felt unbearable became the turning points that shaped us most profoundly. The people who left us taught us independence, the failures we endured taught us perseverance, and the pain we felt opened us to empathy. From the perspective of interdependence, these moments were not accidents, but essential threads in the fabric of our awakening. It is also important to note that interdependence extends beyond the human realm. Our relationship with nature, animals, and the planet itself is part of this great web. The destruction of forests, the pollution of oceans, the suffering of animals, all of these are not separate from human suffering. When we harm the earth, we harm ourselves because we are deeply connected to the environment that sustains us. Likewise, when we care for nature, we nurture our own survival and well-being. Recognizing this truth calls us to live in harmony with the world, to see the sacredness in every form of life, and to remember that the fate of the planet is intertwined with our own destiny. Ultimately, the teaching of interdependence invites us to trust the flow of life. Even when we cannot see the reasons behind events, we can trust that they are part of a greater web of meaning. Just as a single thread may seem insignificant until we see the whole tapestry, the struggles and blessings of our lives reveal their purpose when viewed in the context of the whole. Faith in interdependence is not passive resignation, but active participation, choosing to plant seeds of love and wisdom even in the midst of uncertainty. By doing so, we align ourselves with the harmony of the universe and contribute to the awakening of all beings. And so, when we say everything happens for a reason from the perspective of interdependence, we are acknowledging the truth that nothing exists alone. Every joy, every sorrow, every encounter and every loss is part of a larger design, woven together by the threads of countless causes and conditions. To embrace this is to find peace in uncertainty, meaning in difficulty, and compassion in connection. It is to see that life is not random but deeply purposeful, not because someone dictates it from above, but because the web of life ensures that every moment, no matter how small, matters. If this teaching has touched you and opened your heart to see life in a new way, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. By doing so, you will continue to walk this journey with us, exploring more of the timeless wisdom that reveals the hidden meaning of existence and the profound truth that everything happens for a reason. The transformative power of suffering. Suffering is one of the greatest mysteries of human life, And it is often the experience that leads us to question whether there truly is meaning in the events we endure. From the Buddhist perspective, suffering is not meaningless, nor is it a punishment from some higher power. Instead, suffering is a teacher, a guide, and a path to awakening. It is through the crucible of pain that we are refined, just as metal is purified by fire. When we begin to see suffering not as a curse, but as a doorway, we discover that everything we experience, no matter how difficult, carries within it the seed of transformation. This perspective aligns deeply with the idea that everything happens for a reason, for suffering becomes not an enemy to be feared, but a companion on the journey of awakening. The Buddha's first teaching after his enlightenment was the Four Noble Truths, and at the heart of this teaching is the recognition that life contains suffering. Birth, aging, sickness, death, separation from what we love, and confrontation with what we dislike, all of these are forms of suffering. But the Buddha did not stop at recognizing suffering. He revealed its causes and showed the way to freedom. By identifying craving, attachment, and ignorance as the roots of suffering, he illuminated the path toward liberation. This was not meant to discourage us, but to empower us with the knowledge that suffering itself is not the final word. Rather, it is the doorway to awakening. Without suffering, we would never question, never seek, never grow. With suffering, we are pushed to look deeper, to find meaning, and to discover the resilience and wisdom hidden within us. Suffering takes many forms, from the quiet ache of loneliness to the overwhelming devastation of loss. Each of these experiences shapes us in ways we may not understand at the time. The heartbreak that leaves us shattered may eventually teach us the depth of love's value. The illness that confines us may awaken a gratitude for life we never knew before. The failure that humiliates us may prepare us for a greater purpose, yet unseen. From the Buddhist point of view, suffering is not accidental. It arises because of causes and conditions, and it exists to awaken us. When we say everything happens for a reason, we are affirming that even our deepest pain is not wasted. It serves as a catalyst for transformation, a fire that burns away illusions and reveals truth. To understand the transformative power of suffering, we must first recognize its role in stripping away our attachments. Much of our pain arises from clinging to people, to possessions, to identities, to expectations. We imagine that life should unfold according to our desires, and when it does not, we suffer. But suffering has the strange power to reveal the futility of clinging. When loss comes, we are forced to release what we cannot hold. When sickness arrives, we are reminded that our bodies are impermanent. When failure knocks us down, we learn that our worth cannot rest on success alone. In each case, suffering teaches us to let go, to loosen our grip, and to discover freedom in the very act of release. Without suffering, we might never let go, and without letting go, we might never taste the peace that comes from living without attachment. Suffering also awakens compassion. When we suffer, we understand the pain of others in ways that cannot be taught through words alone. A person who has grieved deeply knows the language of loss and can offer comfort to others with a sincerity that transcends platitudes. A person who has struggled with failure understands the silent despair of others in the same struggle. A person who has endured rejection knows how to embrace others with acceptance. In this way, suffering breaks open the heart, making us tender to the struggles of others. This is why the greatest healers, teachers, and sages are often those who have suffered the most. Their suffering became the ground of their compassion, and their compassion became a light for the world. Buddhism teaches that when we turn our suffering into compassion, we transform not only ourselves, but also the lives of countless others. Moreover, suffering invites us to face the impermanence of all things. It is easy to live in illusion when life is comfortable, to imagine that our health will last forever, that our loved ones will never leave, that our success will always remain. But suffering disrupts these illusions. It confronts us with the truth that nothing lasts, that everything is in flux. While this truth can be painful, it also liberates us from clinging to what cannot be held. When we accept impermanence, we begin to cherish life as it is. In each fleeting moment, the smile of a loved one becomes precious, the beauty of the sunrise becomes sacred, the simple act of breathing becomes a gift. Suffering strips away complacency and awakens gratitude, teaching us to live fully in the present. The transformative power of suffering is also evident in how it forces us inward. In times of comfort, we may be distracted by pleasures and pursuits, rarely pausing to ask deeper questions. But in times of suffering, the superficial loses its grip. We begin to ask, who am I? What is the purpose of my life? What lies beyond this pain? These questions drive us inward, toward reflection, meditation, and ultimately awakening. The Buddha himself did not seek enlightenment until he was confronted with suffering, seeing sickness, aging, and death for the first time. It was suffering that pushed him to leave his palace, to renounce his illusions, and to discover the path to liberation. In the same way, our suffering can become the catalyst for our own spiritual awakening if we choose to face it with courage and openness. Yet we must also recognize that suffering alone does not transform us. It is our response to suffering that determines its meaning. Two people may endure the same hardship, but one becomes bitter and closed, while the other becomes compassionate and wise. The difference lies in how they choose to interpret and respond to their pain. Buddhism teaches that we cannot always control the causes of suffering, but we can always choose our response. By meeting suffering with mindfulness, we create space for transformation. By meeting it with resentment, we create more suffering. Thus, the reason behind suffering is not found in the event itself, but in the opportunity it presents for awakening. Everything happens for a reason, not because the universe seeks to punish us, but because every experience carries the potential for growth. Stories throughout history illustrate this truth. Great teachers, saints, and ordinary people alike have found their deepest strength in their darkest hours. A person who loses everything may discover the richness of inner freedom. A person who suffers rejection may discover their authentic voice. A person who faces death may awaken to the eternal nature of the spirit. Each story reveals that suffering is not an end, but a beginning, not a meaningless tragedy, but a pathway to a greater truth. The Buddha taught that just as the lotus blooms from the mud, so too does awakening bloom from suffering. Without mud, no lotus. Without suffering, no wisdom. This perspective does not dismiss the reality of pain. Suffering hurts, and it should not be romanticized or minimized, but by understanding its deeper role, we give our pain meaning. We begin to see that our struggles are not in vain, but are part of a larger journey. This understanding allows us to endure suffering with patience, to transform it with compassion, and to use it as a stepping stone toward awakening. In this way, suffering becomes not a prison but a teacher, not a burden but a gift, not an obstacle but a path. It is in this transformation that we find the profound truth that everything happens for a reason. Therefore, when suffering enters our lives, let us not despair. Let us remember that within its fire lies the possibility of awakening. Let us embrace the lessons it offers, the compassion it awakens, the wisdom it reveals, and let us trust that every tear we shed, every pain we endure, every challenge we face is shaping us into beings of greater love, greater strength, and greater light. This is the gift of suffering, the reason behind its presence, the transformative power it holds. If these reflections have resonated with you, and you wish to continue discovering the profound wisdom that transforms even suffering into awakening, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. By subscribing, you join a community dedicated to exploring the timeless teachings that illuminate the path of life, reminding us always that everything happens for a reason. Impermanence as a teacher of meaning. The Buddhist teaching of impermanence, known as anicca, stands as one of the most profound insights into the nature of life. At first glance, impermanence seems like a harsh truth, reminding us that nothing lasts, that all things change, and that even what we love most will one day pass away. Yet within this teaching lies a deep source of wisdom and freedom. When we see impermanence not as a curse, but as a teacher, we discover that it is precisely because things change that life has meaning. The fragile beauty of a flower lies in the fact that it will not bloom forever. The value of time lies in its passing. The poignancy of love lies in the reality that we cannot hold it indefinitely. Impermanence teaches us to cherish, to awaken, and to recognize that everything happens for a reason, even if that reason is hidden within the cycles of arising and passing away. From the Buddhist perspective, impermanence is the very fabric of existence. Nothing remains the same from one moment to the next. Mountains rise and erode, rivers carve new paths, bodies grow and decay, stars are born and die. The self we cling to is not fixed, but a stream of changing thoughts, feelings, and perceptions. When we understand impermanence, we realize that life is a dance of constant transformation, where every moment is both an ending and a beginning. This realization is not meant to depress us, but to awaken us. It shows us that clinging to what cannot last is the root of suffering, and letting go is the path to peace. It also reveals that even the most painful experiences are not eternal. They too will pass, opening the door to healing and renewal. Impermanence gives meaning to joy. Imagine if happiness could be permanently fixed. It would soon lose its flavor. The sweetness of joy arises precisely because it is fleeting. When we laugh with a friend, when we hold a child, when we watch the sun set, we feel moved because we know these moments will not return in the same way. Impermanence makes beauty precious. The Japanese tradition of wabi-sabi celebrates this truth, finding beauty in the transience of things. The withered leaf, the cracked pottery, the fleeting season. These reminders of impermanence teach us to appreciate the moment fully, to see that its value lies in its passing. In this way, impermanence becomes a guide to mindfulness, urging us to live deeply in the present, to savor what is here, now, before it slips away. Impermanence also gives meaning to suffering. When we are in the midst of pain, we often feel as though it will never end. Yet Buddhism reminds us that suffering too is impermanent. The grief that overwhelms us today will soften with time. The wounds that feel unbearable will heal. The darkness that surrounds us will eventually give way to light. This truth does not deny the reality of pain, but it offers hope. Just as joy cannot be held forever, neither can suffering. Life is a cycle of arising and passing away, and within this cycle, everything has its place. To know this is to find resilience, to endure hardship with patience, trusting that change will come. This is one of the reasons why everything happens, because every season, whether of joy or pain, contributes to the unfolding of our lives, teaching us lessons we could not learn otherwise. Impermanence also teaches us humility. We often cling to power, status, or possessions, believing that they will secure our place in the world. But impermanence reminds us that nothing external can last. The wealth we accumulate will one day belong to someone else. The fame we achieve will fade from memory. The body we cherish will age and die. This recognition humbles us, but it also frees us. It frees us from the endless chase for what cannot endure, and it directs us toward what truly matters: kindness, wisdom, compassion, and love. These qualities, though also impermanent in form, ripple outward in ways that transcend our individual lives. The act of love today may inspire generations tomorrow. In this way, impermanence teaches us to invest not in what will crumble, but in what will nourish the greater whole. In relationships, impermanence deepens our appreciation. When we love someone, knowing that our time together is finite makes that love more urgent, more sincere. Every goodbye could be the last, and so every meeting is sacred. This truth may seem heavy, but it is liberating. It awakens us to the reality that we must not waste our time in resentment, pride, or neglect. Instead, we must cherish those we love while we can. Impermanence does not diminish love, it intensifies it. It teaches us to say the words we might otherwise withhold, to forgive more quickly, to embrace more fully. In this way, impermanence becomes a guide to deeper connection, reminding us that everything happens for a reason, even the fleeting nature of love itself. Impermanence also shapes our spiritual journey. The very possibility of awakening depends on impermanence. If we were fixed beings, bound forever by ignorance or suffering, liberation would be impossible. But because we are impermanent, we can change. Because our minds and hearts are fluid, we can learn, grow, and awaken. The Buddha often emphasized this truth, that just as a seed grows into a tree, so too can ignorance transform into wisdom and hatred into compassion. Impermanence is not only the end of things, it is also the beginning. It is the ground of possibility, the promise of transformation. Every moment offers the chance to let go of the old and step into the new. In this sense, impermanence is not a threat but a gift, the reason why awakening is possible at all. One of the most profound ways to experience impermanence is through meditation. When we sit in silence, observing our breath, our thoughts, our sensations, we see directly that nothing stays the same. Each breath arises and passes. Each thought appears and dissolves. Each feeling changes and fades. By observing this, we train ourselves to accept the truth of impermanence, not intellectually, but experientially. We begin to see that clinging is futile, that letting go is freedom, and that peace arises not from holding on, but from flowing with the river of change. In this way, meditation becomes a practice of aligning ourselves with reality, a way of living in harmony with the impermanent nature of life. Impermanence also reshapes our understanding of death. Death is perhaps the greatest reminder of impermanence, and for many, it is the greatest source of fear. Yet Buddhism teaches that death is not an end, but a transformation. Just as day turns into night, just as seasons change, so too does life flow into death and beyond. The body dissolves, but the energy, the consciousness, the karmic seeds continue. Death is not separate from life, it is part of its cycle. To understand this is to live without fear, to cherish life without clinging, and to face death with peace. Everything happens for a reason, including death, for it is the great teacher that reminds us of the preciousness of life and the urgency of awakening. When we fully embrace impermanence, our perspective on life transforms. We stop asking why things cannot last and start asking how we can live fully while they are here. We stop resenting change and start flowing with it. We stop fearing endings and start seeing them as beginnings. Impermanence becomes not a source of despair, but a source of meaning, reminding us that every moment matters, every choice counts, and every experience is part of the unfolding of our path. In this way, impermanence reveals that everything happens for a reason, not because the universe owes us an explanation, but because the nature of change itself carries wisdom and purpose. Thus, when we encounter impermanence in our lives, whether through loss, change, or endings, let us not resist it. Let us embrace it as a teacher, as a guide, as a reminder that life is precious precisely because it is fleeting. Let us see impermanence not as an enemy, but as a friend who urges us to live deeply, to love fully, to awaken completely. For in impermanence we find the meaning of life, the possibility of growth, and the truth that everything indeed happens for a reason. If these reflections on impermanence have touched your heart and opened your mind to the deeper meaning of life, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. By subscribing, you will continue to journey with us through the timeless wisdom of Buddhism, discovering the hidden truths that illuminate the path of awakening and reveal that everything happens for a reason. Mindfulness and awakening to the hidden order. Mindfulness is at the heart of Buddhist practice, and it serves as one of the most powerful keys to understanding the truth that everything happens for a reason. While the previous teachings of karma, interdependence, suffering, and impermanence provide the framework for why life unfolds as it does, mindfulness is the practice that allows us to see this truth directly. Without mindfulness, we move through life blindly, tossed about by circumstances, reacting impulsively, and missing the deeper meaning hidden in our experiences. With mindfulness, however, we awaken to the present moment, see the patterns of cause and effect as they unfold, and recognize the hidden order that gives meaning to every step of our journey. Mindfulness transforms life from a random series of events into a sacred path of awakening. At its simplest, mindfulness is the practice of paying attention, moment by moment, without judgment. It is the awareness of the breath as it flows in and out, the attention to thoughts as they arise and pass, the recognition of feelings without clinging or aversion. But mindfulness is more than a technique. It is a way of being. It is the choice to live awake rather than asleep, to notice rather than ignore, to engage fully with life rather than drift through it unconsciously. When we live with mindfulness, we begin to see the interconnectedness of all things, the impermanence of every experience, the lessons hidden within suffering, and the truth that nothing happens without cause. Mindfulness reveals the reasons behind the events of our lives, not as abstract theories, but as living truths we experience directly. Consider, for example, the ordinary act of walking. Without mindfulness, walking is simply a means to get from one place to another, often rushed, distracted, and unconscious. With mindfulness, walking becomes a profound teaching. Each step reveals the miracle of balance, the support of the earth, the gift of the body. Each breath reminds us of the interdependence of life, the exchange of air between ourselves and the trees, the cycles of nature that sustain us. Through mindfulness, even the simplest act reveals meaning. Everything becomes a teacher, everything becomes significant, everything happens for a reason that can be glimpsed in the present moment. Mindfulness also transforms how we relate to suffering. Without mindfulness, suffering overwhelms us. We become lost in our pain, identified with it and blinded by it. With mindfulness, however, we can observe suffering with clarity. We notice the sensations in the body, the thoughts in the mind, the emotions in the heart. We recognize the craving or aversion that fuels the suffering, and we see how our reactions add layers of pain to the original wound. This awareness creates space, and within that space lies the possibility of freedom. We begin to see that suffering is not meaningless. It arises because of causes, and within it lies the possibility of awakening. Mindfulness allows us to face suffering not as a victim but as a student, learning its lessons, transforming its energy, and discovering its hidden purpose. Furthermore, mindfulness deepens our understanding of impermanence. When we observe our breath, we see that it arises and passes moment after moment. When we observe our thoughts, we see that none of them last. They appear, linger briefly, and dissolve. When we observe our feelings, we see that they too change constantly, shifting from joy to sorrow, from anger to calm, from fear to courage. Through mindfulness, impermanence is no longer an abstract concept, but a lived reality. We see directly that clinging is futile, that letting go is freedom, and that change is the very nature of life. This realization helps us to stop resisting impermanence and to begin embracing it, trusting that everything happens for a reason within the larger flow of change. Mindfulness also opens us to the subtle guidance of life. Often, we are so caught up in our thoughts, worries, and plans that we miss the quiet whispers of the universe. But when we are mindful, we become sensitive to the signs and synchronicities that appear along our path. A chance meeting with a stranger, a sudden shift in circumstances, an unexpected challenge, All of these can carry messages, guiding us toward growth, healing, or awakening. Mindfulness allows us to notice these messages, to discern their meaning, and to trust that they are part of a greater order. What may seem random to the unconscious mind reveals itself as purposeful to the mindful heart. In this way, mindfulness teaches us that nothing is wasted, nothing is meaningless, and everything has a role in the unfolding of our lives. Moreover, mindfulness cultivates compassion. When we are mindful of our own suffering, we become gentler with ourselves, less harsh, less judgmental. This gentleness naturally extends to others. We begin to notice the struggles of those around us, to recognize their pain, and to respond with kindness. Mindfulness breaks down the walls of isolation and awakens the sense of shared humanity. In this way, mindfulness not only reveals meaning in our own lives, but also helps us to bring meaning to the lives of others. Every act of kindness, every word of compassion, every gesture of care becomes part of the greater web of meaning that affirms the truth that everything happens for a reason. Mindfulness also liberates us from the tyranny of the past and the anxiety of the future. So much of our suffering arises from replaying past mistakes or fearing future uncertainties, but mindfulness anchors us in the present moment, where life is actually happening. In the present, we find clarity, peace, and meaning. The past is gone, the future is not yet, but the present is alive, full, and sacred. When we live mindfully, we discover that the present moment contains everything we need. We see that the reasons behind life's events are not always found in distant explanations, but in the wisdom of being fully alive, here and now. This realization is one of the greatest gifts of mindfulness, the recognition that the meaning of life is not hidden in some distant future, but revealed in the unfolding of each moment. In Buddhist tradition, mindfulness is often likened to a lamp that illuminates the darkness. Without it, we stumble blindly, confused by the seeming chaos of life. With it, we see clearly, recognizing the patterns, the causes, the interconnections, and the meaning woven into our experiences. This light of mindfulness does not remove challenges, but it reveals their purpose. It does not prevent change, but it shows us how to flow with it. It does not erase suffering, but it transforms suffering into wisdom. Through mindfulness, we awaken to the hidden order of life, and we see that everything indeed happens for a reason. The practice of mindfulness also connects us to the sacredness of ordinary life. Too often, we think that meaning must be found in grand events or extraordinary achievements. But mindfulness reveals that the sacred is present in the ordinary. Washing dishes, drinking tea, listening to the rain, all of these become profound when we are fully present. Each moment becomes a doorway to awakening. Each act becomes an expression of meaning. When we live this way, we no longer need to search desperately for reasons. We see them everywhere. The smile of a stranger, the rhythm of our breath, the warmth of the sun. Each is a reminder that life itself is meaningful, that everything participates in the great dance of existence. In this way, mindfulness unites all the previous teachings. It shows us karma as we witness the effects of our actions in real time. It reveals interdependence as we notice how each moment is shaped by countless conditions. It helps us face suffering with clarity and transform it into compassion. It makes impermanence vivid and liberating, teaching us to cherish what is fleeting. Mindfulness is the thread that ties together the wisdom of Buddhism, enabling us to live the truth that everything happens for a reason, not as a distant belief, but as a lived experience. Through mindfulness, the abstract becomes tangible, the hidden becomes visible, and the mysterious becomes meaningful. Therefore, the invitation of mindfulness is simple yet profound: to live awake, to notice the breath, to observe the mind, to feel the body, to see the world as it is, to be present to joy and to sorrow, to beginnings and to endings, to growth and to loss, to meet each moment with openness, curiosity, and compassion. In doing so, we discover that life is not random, not meaningless, but deeply purposeful. Everything we encounter becomes part of our awakening. Everything we endure becomes part of our growth. Everything we love becomes part of our path. This is the hidden order revealed by mindfulness, the truth that everything happens for a reason. And so, as we conclude this exploration, let us carry mindfulness into our daily lives. Let us practice presence in each step, each breath, each interaction. Let us remember that within the ordinary lies the extraordinary, within the fleeting lies the eternal, and within the challenges lies the possibility of awakening. Let us trust that every moment, no matter how small, matters, for it is part of the great unfolding of life. When we live this way, we no longer need to search for meaning. We live it. We embody the truth that everything happens for a reason, here and now. If this reflection on mindfulness and awakening has resonated with you, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. By subscribing, you will continue to walk this journey with us, exploring the timeless wisdom of Buddhism that reveals the hidden meaning of life and illuminates the path of awakening. Together, we can live with greater awareness, compassion, and peace, trusting always that everything happens for a reason.